What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cap Show. UFC 284 is here. Shout out to Alexander Volkanovski, a.k.a. Alexander the Great, versus Islam. This cat, Islam, is no joke. He's the favorite, clear favorite to me. He came up under Khabib, so we already know what he's about. He's about, obviously, wrestling, standing up. He could beat you in so many different ways, but obviously, I'm going to go Islam to the advantage here. Why am I going Islam over Alexander the Great Volkanovski? Is because I think really the grappling's gonna be the difference maker in this fight overall. And I think for Islam, man, these guys are just different breeds, dude. I mean, if you train with Khabib your whole life and come up under Khabib and just that whole culture that they bring up, these type of fighters, it's just a different fight game. And I think, you know, the pressure's going to be very different for Alexander the Great. Now, I will say for Alexander, he has been through adversity, especially in the Brian Ortega fight, where it looked like he was going to get choked out. Clearly, it looked like he was going to tap, but he just never gave up and somehow got out of these submissions. And it was just like, how? How did Alexander get out of that? You know, the Ortega fight, for a prime example, I was just like, dude, he's done. He's going to tap. But no, he battled back, came back, and ended up winning that fight. And they're both champions. That's what's amazing about the UFC, is really just the championship level fighters. And now this card right here is two champions going against each other. The pound for pound number one in Alexander and the pound for pound number two, Islam, are fighting each other. This is great. Great business, great for the UFC fight fans across the world. So I think this is a great fight. Now, UFC 284, I don't know much about the other fighters. I really don't. I never heard of any of the other fighters on this card except these two. Now, not to take away anything from the UFC and Dana White and what they built an empire. And not to mention the GOAT, Jon Jones is coming back at UFC 285. I cannot wait. Everybody should be happy. You know, even if you're a Jon Jones hater, you should be like, dude, Jon Jones is back next month, dude. Next month, Jon Jones will be the heavyweight champion of the world. And what would they say next, you know, about Jon Jones? I mean, Jon Jones literally has never lost. Yes, he did lose one time because he threw an illegal elbow. This was way back when he first came up in the UFC, and really he was dominating that fight as well. So technically, I would say Jon Jones has never lost. You know, he's never been beat, dude. The only thing that Jon Jones has lost to is himself, you know, outside of the octagon. That's the thing. So I think that's huge for the UFC. But this fight in Australia, where Alexander's from, I think this is great for all the Australian fans out there. You know, I think for the UFC, it's great. It is great business. And what Dana White has built up, you know, the past 20 years, and really invested about $2 million into this company, and they thought they were going to fall off. You know, they were going to be in debt, a bunch of money. Now all of a sudden they're worth billions of dollars on ESPN now. So I think I love the story of Dana White and how really they got the UFC going. And back in the day, from like Chuck Liddell days, and just, you know, these fighters just coming up, dude, that paved the way for today. So, and I think, you know, this fight right here is going to be the definition of both champions. And either win or lose, whoever wins or loses, they're going to take it like a champion and still be a champion in my eyes. So, obviously, for Alexander, he's going up in weight. That's going to be a little bit tougher. But I think for him being a little bit shorter, he can use that to his advantage. It is harder to take down a shorter guy. You know, if you take down a tall guy, it's easier because he's got long legs. It's easier to get under him. You know, for Alexander and Islam, it's like, dude, it's not going to just be a cakewalk just trying to take him down. Like, yes, I understand the pressure and all that, but if we go back to all the Islam's fights, he's 23-1. Alexander's 25-1. I mean, these guys are crazy good. And we look at Islam and say, well, his one loss was back in 2015. He got knocked out. You know, it's one of them just hits that he took on the chin and he just dropped. He really did. But ever since that loss that Islam took back in 2015, he's really battled his way all the way up until this point in 2023, where it's like, I'm never going to give up. You know, and ever since that loss he took in 2015, he hasn't lost since. So it's like he's on a mission, training with Khabib, the Eagle. So I think, dude, obviously I'm rooting for both of these guys, but I think Islam is going to take this fight. I really do. I would bet on Islam. You know, in his last fight, he fought Charles Oliveira, which I thought Charles Oliveira was going to win that fight. I really did. I thought Charles Oliveira, I picked him to win that fight. Obviously, I was way wrong. But Islam does what he does. You know, he's going to take you down eventually. He's going to grapple you. He's going to ground and pound, just like Khabib does. You know, know, and he will beat you on the feet, you know, and a lot of people underestimate Islam. Even Khabib back on his feet. And we saw Khabib, you know, really dominate in a way against McGregor, dude. And McGregor's known to be one of the best on his feet. And we saw McGregor get tagged up in the second round against Khabib. It was crazy, right? But I think for Islam, dude, it's really just keep your distance, you know, and then eventually go for the takedowns. Now, Alexander, you're going to have to pick your spots. And I think that his big hope for Alexander is his right hand. You know, obviously, if you're going to land that right hand, you're going to have to do other combinations, throw leg kicks. Who knows? Maybe even Alexander might beat Islam at his own game and maybe attempt for a takedown. You just never know. But I could see this fight standing up the first couple of rounds, and then Islam gets in a groove and then takes him down for ground and pound. I think he's going to win probably by decision, but like I said, back in the Charles Oliveira fight, he won by arm triangle. So I think there's so many different ways, right, to win in the UFC and MMA mixed martial arts. That's what makes it great, right? You don't just have to win by knockout. You don't have to win by triangle. You can win by so many different ways. And I think that makes really MMA around the world so popular today, dude. It's like, it's the pinnacle of fighting sports combat, dude. It really is. It's just, I think it's the pinnacle. I think boxing in a way is kind of going downhill, so to speak. I mean, boxing, you only have two arms. That's it, dude. You only have your hands. Whereas MMA, you have everything. You got your knees, you got your legs, you got your elbows. You got so many different weapons in MMA. That's why I think people like it more or tend to tune in more. That's what I like about it. Now, I think for Islam, you're going to have to do what he does. Take him down, ground and pound Alexander, and that's how he's going to win this fight. So I think I'm going to Islam in this fight. You know, obviously you can lose, definitely, but I think it's going to be closer than what a lot of the experts are saying about this fight, especially for Alexander. I think for Alexander, you're fighting in Australia. You're going to have that spirit there. You're going to have everything. So obviously he's the underdog. He's plus 310 right now, Alexander. So, you know, you throw a rack on it, you're going to get over 3 bands back. So obviously, you know, that'll be a risk. I would not throw a lot of money on Alexander right now. I don't see it. I see, you know, even Islam beating him on the feet. I really do. I think for Alexander, for Volk, I think you gotta pick and choose here. You gotta go in and out. You gotta keep your distance, dude. You can't let Islam just get you against the cage and then eventually take you down. You cannot let him do that. You gotta get Islam out of his comfort zone. You know, throw body shots. You know, that's where you gotta start with Islam. You gotta go to the body. If I'm Alexander, you're going to the body immediately, dude. Trying to slow him down. You really do. But Alexander, I mean, he beat Max Holloway 3 times for the belt. I mean, there's a lot of things that build up to this fight right now tomorrow night. You know, it really is. So I think it's great for the sport. Like I said, UFC 285 with Jon Jones is coming back. Not to mention everybody's, you know, fan favorite Conor McGregor. He is coming back, dude. He's going to be on The Ultimate Fighter with Michael Chandler, and they're probably going to fight in August or September, which is going to be great. I really do. I think this is great for UFC business. Obviously, Dana White is about the bread, and Conor McGregor as well is about the bread. I think for McGregor right now, it's really getting back to your roots. How do you get here, McGregor? You know, we have to understand McGregor was at one point sitting on his couch, a plumber collecting welfare checks in Ireland, dude. Like doing that. Okay, now all of a sudden he's a mega superstar 10 years later down the road. So I think what got McGregor here was the hunger, was the passion of the fight game. And this was way back in 2008 or 9, you know, when he really got that passion. So I think for McGregor, you got to go back to your roots. What got you here? What got you rich? What got you famous? You know, what got you wealthy now? You know, oh, you're going to be a billionaire eventually. So for McGregor, it's like humble beginnings here. So I think it's really going to go back to his roots and say, you know what? This sport in the UFC, MMA really got me out of poverty. It got me to a better life, dude. It really did. It got me to a better lifestyle. Now I understand there's a lot of other things dealing with alcohol and all the club stuff, whatever. I do think, yes, in a way, that the fame could have got to McGregor. I really do believe that. Now, on the flip side is, hey, you know, you're at the end of your career here in MMA. We know that. I think McGregor has a couple years left, if that. You know, a lot of people, I even thought McGregor really should have retired after the Khabib fight. You know, I really do. I mean, even after the Mayweather fight, it was like, dude, you have made over 100 M's. Like, if you go broke over 100 M's, you're just stupid, dude. You're financially illiterate. You just don't know what you're doing if you're going broke over 100 M's. So I think from McGregor's point of view, you know, selling whiskey, you know, he's a businessman now. He's more of a showman. So I think it's going to be great for the sport. And fighting Michael Chandler as well. well. It's like, dude, Michael Chandler, he's on the rise. I think he's, what, 2-2 in the UFC right now, maybe even 2-3, something like that. But he's an entertainer. He brings the fight, man. And every fight he's fought has been great. It really has. I mean, the Justin Gaethje fight was great. He stunned him. The Dustin Poirier fight was great. Really, Michael Chandler, I think if you had better striking, he would have beat Dustin Poirier, would have knocked him out, you know, in the first round. We've seen that. So I think, you know, the UFC this year, it has some big fights. Then we got the Leon Edwards rematch versus Kamaru Usman. That's huge as well. So much is going to happen this year in the UFC. Great business. The only downside that I have is, you know, everybody, you know, the former heavyweight champion, Francis Ngannou, who's off the UFC roster. I don't know what happened there. That's sad news to me. You know, I thought, you know, they could have had different negotiations. I don't know really what went down with that. You know, I hope Francis Ngannou goes to box Tyson Fury. Who knows what's going to happen there? But, you know, big events coming up for the UFC. But UFC 284 is going to set it off right in Australia. It's going to be a great fights. You know, obviously, I don't know much about the other fighters. I really don't. But for Islam and Alexander, dude, I think this is great, man. This is, you know, two champions. The pound for pound number 1 versus the pound for pound number 2. Put them in the cage. 5 rounds. Let's go. You know, who's going to win here? You know, and I think the fighter who wins this fight is going to be the more calculated fighter and the fighter who preserves energy throughout the rounds. When we get in the later rounds, the championship rounds, the 4th and 5th rounds, who's going to be the one to take him down? Who's going to be one to land that heavy right? You know, who's going to be one to land that nasty leg kick to the body? You know, these type of things that start to add up in the UFC game. So I think, you know, we're in for a really good treat. But obviously, my final prediction, I'm going at, I mean, I would love to see Alexander with the upset. I really would. But I'm going to Islam. You know, I think he's going to win, even by decision. But I think Islam wins. Somehow maybe ground and pound or a submission, even though Alexander really doesn't get submitted. So I could see a knockout or just a, you know, unanimous victory by Islam in a close fight. I really do. Now, if Alexander wins, it's going to be by knockout. It's going to be by his right hand and somehow connects with Islam. And when Islam isn't expecting it, maybe he's expecting a leg kick and he goes for that, or protects the body and just goes with the overhand right to knock out Islam. I could see that happening. I really can. And we go back to the McGregor Aldo fight. You know, we saw that punch that just, it was just perfect timing, dude. So I think Alexander needs that. He needs to be sharp in here. He definitely does not want to get beat on the feet, because if he opens up this fight, say the whole first round's on the foot and Alexander does not win the first round, it's going to be terrible, because you got to win on the feet. You got to, if you're Alexander. You cannot let Islam go to his game plan, beat you on the feet for a little bit, and then get you against the cage, and then ground and pound you the rest of the fight, you know, for the next 3 or 4 rounds. You cannot let him do that. But I think Alexander's going to win. I think a lot of big money is being thrown on Islam. You know, he's minus 380 right now, according to Vegas. So, but these fighters only have 1 loss. So, you know, it's going to be great. I cannot wait. It's in Australia. Everybody turn up. It's the UFC 284, baby. It's the Cloud with Cam show. Let's go!